Hello and welcome back to the Lenko Show. This is episode 112. We're going to be talking about can we actually run any faster? So, me and Chris, we're back again. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good, brother. I'm good, thank you. And today I'm bringing my sponsor, which is Aldi slash Lidl's very own Twisted Fruits Zero Sugar edition. Um, Fantastic, fantastic. It's not quite the exact same name that you would normally get
Is it
with
fantastic or a fantastic?
Fantastic. I like it. I like it.
Do
Yeah,
you know what? I actually quite like some of the fake stuff from the likes of Aldi and Lidl and places like that. It's quite good.
it is.
Uh, we
It's
get
pretty.
uh we sometimes get the fake squares bars that are they're quite nice as like a little post-workout snack after like reward yourself for doing the additional cardio or the extra set. Like it's quite a nice little
I love
snicky
that.
snacky snoo.
What are they called?
They're called Chunky, but
Chuck.
it's a fake squares bar in our household.
Okay.
I actually think that they're better than the original squares bars, which is one of them.
Slightly controversial.
You're allowed different opinions and different tastes. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I'm feeling a bit better than last week as well. You can tell like I'm still a little bit like ugh, like bunged up in the nose, but feeling better for it. I sweated like a I'm not going to say it. Sweated very hard on Friday. I went in, just did 30 minutes, like literally 30 minutes of intervals on the assault bike and was like just drip, just absolutely bathed in it. And then I did something similar on Monday when I was starting to kind of come around. So I did a little bit of like a little bit of leg work and then smash some intervals again. And now I'm feeling more or less back to normal. I'm pretty much training as normal.
Well, firstly, good. I'm glad you're feeling better. Secondly, was that what you were meant to be doing workout wise, or did you just decide to do that because you weren't feeling well?
I decided to do that because I wasn't feeling well. Um,
Right.
I just felt like I needed to sweat. So I did nothing on the Wednesday. You know, when we last podcast, I did absolutely nothing. Pretty much laid down, went to bed. I didn't even go to American football training. I was absolutely done. I was like lying on the sofa. Everything was achy. Everything was cold. Like everything felt sore. Like I could barely move. I was an absolute mess. And then I was the same again on Thursday. And then Friday, I pretty much did nothing because I still felt rotten. But I had to be in the gym on Friday night for a couple of sessions. And before that, I just thought, you know what? I just need to sweat. I need to get my heart rate up a little bit. I need to move and feel my body a little bit. So I just decided to do like half an hour's worth of intervals on that.
Sorry. So just to understand there, what you're telling me, you weren't feeling well, so you didn't just lie on the sofa and eat ice cream feeling sorry for yourself.
I for 2 days I did, but I didn't eat ice cream.
Ah.
I felt sorry for myself for a good 5 days. Don't miss that bit out. I did feel sorry for myself. Cue the
Okay.
little violin. But yeah, Friday I had to get in the gym. I had to move a little bit, and then Sunday I had an American football game, and I still felt horrendous. And I got popped as well. I took a. In fact, there were a couple of little moments. We had like a little goal line tush push early on in the first quarter, and I ended up so like my job in that is I'm basically at the back of the formation. The ball gets snapped and like everything kind of like either moves forward or gets stopped a little bit, and I just come in from the back of the pile to push the pile forwards, and somehow I managed to kind of push the pile forwards, but almost like went through the pile a little bit, and I ended up on the floor face to face with one of our offensive linemen, and we had a little moment, me and Nick Mitchelson, we had a little moment where he looked at me and he was like, confusion in his face is like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm almost looking at him thinking, "What am I doing here?" And he just went, "Oh, hello." We just lay there for a second, waiting for everyone else to get up out of our way, and uh, and then carried on. Yeah, but I did not feel good, and I got hit on the kickoff where I
I
did
saw that. Is that an onside kick?
yeah yeah. So it's a little onside kick, pop it
Explain
down
to
the
the
middle.
people that are listening what that was.
Yeah, so basically, here's some free scout on the Edinburgh Wolves and what they do. They only have four people on their front line, which means that their two guys in the middle of the field are spread on the hash mark. So from where I place the ball in the middle of the field, there's a gap. Now, kickoff rules, as long as the ball travels 10 yards, once it's traveled 10 yards, anybody can play the ball if it's bounced. If it's still in the air, then the opposing team they have the right to be able to catch the ball. You have to let them make a catch on it. You can't interfere with it. So basically, this kickoff is like bobble it down the middle where the two guys are, and then as long as I'm next to the ball, which I normally are, I've pretty much perfected this to the point where I can dribble it for the 10 yards and it'll pop up perfectly to me. In this situation, though, smart heads up play by one of their players. He decided not to play the ball. He just went straight through me, and I kid you not, I wasn't even necessarily looking where he was coming from. I was looking at the ball thinking, this is perfect, this is perfect. And then all of a sudden, I remember from looking at the ball and pretty much having it in my hands, I ended up on the floor looking at the hash mark, which is a good, so like 6 or 7 yards to the side, thinking, fucking hell, how did I get here? I just kind of like recognized what had happened and kind of went onto one knee, slowly got up and was like, yeah, fair enough, and just went back and picked up the kickoff tee again, feeling sorry for myself. I was like talking to myself, I was like, I really did not need that.
I was gonna
But
say, trust me.
we got the ball back as well, so it was worth it. It was worth it.
I'm going to say that's so. What I saw was obviously you kick the ball, it bounces into the floor, and it's just sort of rolling. And all I could see was you like almost on top of it the entire way, looking directly down at it, and then you just get sideswiped, obviously. So
I just
you
got
obviously weren't prepared to be hit or anything like that. So
no, I absolutely was not bracing for contact, and that's why I ended up sort of like a good few yards out to the side. As I said, I basically got sent to pick up the milk. It was like, off you go.
Class.
Anyway, so yeah, that was my weekend, and that's been my training for the last few days.
Nice, mate. Very, very nice. Well, as I said, it's good that you're feeling better again. It's good that you're not feeling sorry for yourself. Um, However, we've got something for you now that you're back and feeling dandy and all that jazz. How do you feel about the Olympic boxing at the moment?
Why did you do that? Why did you ask that? Um, so I think I might have put something on social media a few days ago last week, and the first thing to note, and I don't think I said this at any point, but is that if you referring to the two boxers who are controversial, shall we say, controversially allowed to compete in the female category because they were both banned by the IBA, who normally managed the Olympic boxing, but as a result of Russia's antics with Ukraine, and well, I say it's really downplaying it, isn't it? I don't really want to get political, but like the fact that Russia have gone to war and basically started World War III in Ukraine, Russia are not competing. So the IBA have basically been stood down from all responsibilities involved with the IOC. The IOC state that as long as your passport says male or female, you are to compete in that category, which is what the situation is with these two boxers. And it is possible to be, say, incorrectly sexed at birth. So by all intents and purposes, you would present as a female. You would have a vagina, and then you just look like a normal female. So you can understand, like, baby gets born, you go, oh, there's a set of, there's a set of testes and a penis. Like, that's definitely a lad. Or, oh, it's got a vagina, right? It's a girl. And you sex the child. Again, child grows up, goes through life, goes through puberty, basically, living as that. However, in the case of these two boxers, like obviously that's what they've done. And then at multiple occasions, they've been tested by the IBA. They've registered high for testosterone levels. So then that's gone and sparked further investigation. There have been tests which have been done on both of them to delve a little bit further, which are a bit more confidential. They're a lot more private. They are not necessarily widely spoken out. But I saw there was the doctor for the IBA who came out the other day who independently carried out these tests on both these boxers at two different points. And he categorically says, like, they're both XY chromosomes, they're both actually males. They've got a DSD, which is a developmental sex disorder, which means they don't fully necessarily develop as a male. Now, just because they don't fully develop as a male doesn't mean that they're not. If they have the genetic makeup but aren't presenting as one, it's a slightly different matter. So, to all intents and purposes, biological science, they're both men. And then that's the point where the IBA stepped in and said, you are not allowed to compete in the World Championships or any IBA events. And I think the World Boxing Organization, the WBO, came out and also had a similar principle in place with them, where essentially, because they had a distinct genetic advantage over other athletes, it simply was not fair and is not fair. And I'll be honest, that's the side of the argument I stand on. If you are a male, you compete in the male category. The point where this is actually really controversial is because, like, I think ethically as well, like telling someone who has lived their entire life as a female, thinking they're female, believing they're female, having the appearance and the look of a female via genitalia, it must be incredibly distressing and like pretty horrific actually to be told otherwise, because it goes against everything you ever believed about yourself, and like you're now different. And not only that, but it's also playing out on a world stage. However, does it necessarily make it fair for them to still be able to compete? And this is where the IOC have fucked up big time, because what they used to do was a cheek swab, which would then serve as a screen to say, you should do further testing with regards to this athlete to see if they are male or female, if they have a DSD or not. And at that point, you can actually clarify which gender they are, whether they are a male or a female, and then they can compete in that category. And I know there's plenty of people I've seen throughout the argument of, but both boxers have lost fights and things like that. But at the end of the day, I might lose a fight to a high level female boxer. I might just not be as skillful. I might not be as quick. I might not be as good at boxing as they are. So I might lose. But there's also the chance that with my massively increased amount of power, I would absolutely obliterate someone. And it's not fair. It's not a level playing field. It was the same situation when Caster Semenya was running the 800 meters. It's not a level playing field because you've had that developmental advantage, that increased testosterone levels, where that's something that, specifically we try and keep a lid on in sport to ensure fair competition, whether it's in the female or the male category. And just to give you a rough idea with regards to testosterone levels, from the age of 18 plus, normal testosterone level ranges from 10 to 55 nanograms per deciliter in females. In males, the low end of that range is 248, 250 thereabouts nanograms per deciliter to about 950 nanograms per deciliter. So even if you're on the low end of the male spectrum, you are more than 4 times what a regular female or a high-end female would test as with testosterone. So having a hidden pair of testes is actually still a massive natural, well, say still a massive advantage. And that's kind of where I sit with it. You have to basically separate sport based on biology. And to say that, it's just a natural adaptation. Well, if you want to go down that route, then we will just have eventually high-level female sport, when it's not female sport, will be a bunch of women, people with vaginas on the outside, but really high levels of testosterone and possibly a pair of testes on the inside, where you're essentially, all intents and purposes, competing against men. And, maybe that's the way to go, but it's not the same as the argument that people use about Michael Phelps, for example. So obviously with the advantages that he had, like, arm span, lung capacity, insensitivity to lactate, all like lactic acid, like all those benefits and advantages that he's afforded, that is irrelevant because he's still a male competing in the male category. So if you got a female who's got webbed feet, as irrelevant the fact that she's got webbed feet, she's still a female. So you're talking about like, yeah, differences in genetics, but there's still those two very specific categories for the very intents and purposes of keeping sport fair and safe. So that's where I stand on it. If you're listening to this and you disagree with me, it's all right. It's fine. I'm open to that. I'm open to being wrong. Maybe she hasn't even got an XY chromosome. Maybe she hasn't got a hidden set of testes. Maybe she is just a high test-based woman. And in that case, I am completely wrong. And that is fair enough. But based on the evidence of what the IBA have presented and the low standards from the IOC and the low level of like the hands-off management, in fact, actually, not just the hands-off management, the inability to actually take control of this situation and plant their stake in the ground and say, this is the criteria you have to fulfill to compete as a female in the Olympic Games beyond, oh, it's just what your passport says, we're nothing to do with it. I think that has to be the way forward. The IOC have to get a grip of it. And also like world sport has to get a grip of it and say, this is what we're declaring as a biological female that can compete in the women's category and move on from there.
Yeah, I
But I
agree.
also understand it's actually very difficult because you're not necessarily going to have a brand new baby that, straight after it's been born, you're going to go, right, well, we're just going to double check. Like, that's not going to happen, is it? So this particular case is a very tricky one. And also, I do have sympathies with them. I, sympathize with Caster Semenya. I think I've actually said that before in this podcast. I think it's a tricky situation. It's a very different situation to someone who's born a man, lived as a man, and then transitions to being a female. That is transitions to being a woman and competing in women's sport. That is a very, very different one. This, I think, is a lot more complex and a lot more nuanced and deserves a little bit more thinking.
Yeah, I think it's more than anything, alongside everything, like it's been poorly managed, and you would ideally like to hope that something like that would be clarified and, let's say, fixed in the sense that the situation is very, very clear before they end up actually competing in the Olympics. Like that's what you would want.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway.
And I do think like, so just as a note, because I know we spent way too much time on this compared to what we thought we might do. I didn't even think we were necessarily going to talk about it. But I think in terms of moving forward, what the IOC need to do is I don't know, maybe they should actually just leave this situation alone. Let it play out, let them box, let them fight. And then for the next Olympic Games and for future sporting competitions, they need to bring in more responsible guidelines that actually manage and control the participation of the athletes in that sense.
Do you ever think that things like this are done deliberately?
Done deliberately by who?
Well, that's a deeper question for another day. But
By who and for what purposes? I mean, done deliberately by the athlete.
well, the athlete obviously
No.
is involved in some way, but I definitely think a lot of time there is. I mean, I know the athletes don't really get money for it, but the Olympics is a multi-billion-dollar thing, and you can see that people would pull some strings or create things.
Talking about for the purposes of corruption and gambling.
Maybe.
I don't
Do
know.
you think?
I wouldn't rule it out, but you'd have to prove that.
Yeah.
I think that's a tricky one because all like it could just be. I mean, this is incredible. This is incredibly rare. It's just the very fact, like if you are a very high testosterone athlete competing in the women's category, you are always going to do very well because you have that physical edge. You have that genetic edge to be able to kind of push through to the next level and push above kind of where everyone else is. And as soon as you do that, you're exposed. Like you are like amongst the best in the world simply by being at the games. Yet when you start competing with them and beating people at the games, again, like I say, you're exposed. And if you are a bit of a genetic freak, which to win at the Olympics, you have to be a genetic freak, um, that's going to come under analysis and it's going to come under fire. So, you've got to. I think the one thing that everybody always wants is for people to win fairly, especially when a lot of these athletes aren't actually being paid, mega bucks for doing what they do. Being a javelin thrower doesn't fetch much. So, yeah, I think it's got to be fair. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
What have been your standout performances? Any memorable moments so far? Or obviously, I know it's still going on. We've got, I think, a lot of the track cycling at the minute. Who've been your standout performers?
Not sure if I feel like I've got standout performers. There's been certainly standout moments. I was very, very intrigued by the kayak slalom sprint.
Kayak cross.
Did you see that? Yeah.
I didn't see the final. I've seen bits of the event itself. It just looks like great fun. That
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
like I've always thought, like when they do the actual event and they've got the poles hanging down and then they've got to navigate them and paddle upstream. I've always just thought like, oh, just fuck that. Just go down it as fast as you possibly can. That would be me. I'd love to just get in a kayak and just paddle down that course and just ride the white water. That'd be absolutely class. Forget
Yeah.
paddling upstream and all that technical side of it. I just love to enjoy it and get the speed.
I do think it's very intriguing. And I think the technical aspect is also class when you're watching it and you see them like dipping and moving their bodies around those poles. Um, outrageous, outrageous. And obviously, I've got more of an appreciation for it since we were kayaking doing the DW training. So that
Mm.
was. I also enjoyed the 1500-meter finish last night. Was that last night? That was I only watched it last night anyway. That was pretty good. Did you see that one?
I think I missed it. We came second, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and it was very, very close, but they were running what was perceived to be a world record pace all the way through, and then there was a sprint finish at the end that basically the Norwegian had set a frightening pace, and everyone was just trying to hang on and stay with him. And he was there pushing it, pushing it, pushing it, and then literally the final 100 meters it came down to a sprint finish between four of them, and he actually fell back into fourth place. The British lad moved into second, and it was very, very close between him and an American who finished third, and then another guy from the United States finished first with a ridiculous sprint finish. So, and that was, by the way, at the start of the straight, the final straight, he he wasn't impeded, but as you can imagine, everyone's coming around the inside lane on the corner because that's the shortest path. So he's in, let's say, a convoy of people, and he's on the inside, and he tries to go further down the inside, and there's just no path there. So he has to change his gait, change his stride, slows him right down. The other guys already start off sprinting, and then he sprints down the inside of them on that final straight. It was pretty impressive that he managed to do that. Yeah.
Like it looks like it's a horrible event, the 1500 meters.
Awful.
It's one of
Absolutely.
those that's just pure lactate, just suffer for the next 4 minutes and ugh, yeah,
Yeah.
minging, absolutely honking. Josh Kerr was our athlete that was in that because
That's
he'd had a really good season as well. I think he'd won the world championships. I remember seeing a video where I think he won the world championships and his dad was actually commentating on it, which is pretty
that's
remarkable. That's pretty
yeah.
amazing that. Um, so that's pretty cool. Did you see? Which one do I want to talk about here? There's so many. So there's one of the Cuban athletes, one of the like wrestling. I don't know whether it's Roman wrestling, something like that. He's actually won the gold medal. I think this is right in 5 Olympic Games on the trot
Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah, in the
across the
Greco-Roman.
span of 20 years. 5 Olympic. I might like that is absolute like bro, just fucking unreal. That is an effort, that isn't it?
Yeah. Have you seen him as well?
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's a big lad. He's a big lad.
After he won the final, he was like obviously like up in arms celebrating. And his coach, one of his coaches, walked up to the edge of the mat and he just kind of went over to him and like, like kind of go one arm over the top of one shoulder and the other arm underneath.
Yeah.
And he just gave him a big hug like that. But as he gave him a big hug, he just then rolled him on the floor and just dropped him.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what a guy. What a guy.
I don't want to say his name incorrectly, but it's something like it's Mihain Lopez or something like that. But yeah, I think he's so just to give people an idea, he's 132 kilograms according to Google.
It's a big guy.
41 years old, 132 kilograms, 1.96 meters.
I mean, have you seen the stories about them giving the sort of like the lack of food that they've been getting in the Olympic Village as well,
No, I've not seen that.
and the state of the accommodation? So I think they were trying to give them like loads of vegetarian based options and like they were limiting portion sizes. So I don't know whether there was like one of let's just call it might have been like a Bulgarian shot putter or something like that. And he gets to the dinner queue with his plate and he's like, right, you've massive pile of lamb chops, and it's like you can have two. And the guy's like 30 stone, and he's like, you'd be looking at that thinking, fucking two, like what are my own rations? Like at the Olympic Games, you need to be fueled for your performance. And I think they were just giving him probably loads of like Bill Gates grass fed like bugs and you know drinking weird oils and just eating grass and stuff like that, like rather than actually proper like eggs and meat and things that athletes actually eat and thrive on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I did see that was a bit of an issue at the Olympic Village. I think a few people decided to start bringing in their own chefs and going eating elsewhere to kind of cope and make sure they got the food that they needed.
Why?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think any other standout performance. Did you see women's 100? Like let's just talk the 100 meters. Women's 100 meters. Alfred is it from St. Lucia? Is she from St. Lucia?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely barnstorming it and winning. Was it that their first ever gold medal as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's pretty sick. Like, I love them celebrations as well in St. Lucia, where they're watching it on the big screen. We don't do any of that here, do we?
No, it's. I feel like there used to be more of a buzz around it, more of a thrill around it, but it's kind of died off a little. Mind you, we've got everyone in the UK is too busy rioting at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah. Everyone's too busy rioting. Everyone wants to burn shoes on for a free set of Crocs and then, set fire to Greg's so they can nick a meat pasty and a sausage roll or something like that. It's just, and I think a lot of that as well is like not only are we really good at trashing our own country, but we also like a lot of people seem to actually hate our own country as well. Like, I remember growing up as a kid, like 1998 and like the Euros in 2000 and the World Cup in 2002. And like, everyone's got the England flags on their cars. There's England flags everywhere. And, there used to be actually like a really good sense of national pride. Whereas now what we like to do for major tournaments is just get together, have a massive piss up and chuck pints in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the culture's kind of died out a little bit. There's less people who are actually, like you said, there's less national pride, and it's more people just enjoy the piss up and the experience. People are there to go and be hooligans, go and have fights, go and brawl, go and drink, have some time off work.
Any excuse to set fire to stuff, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Set fire
I
to
remember
set
when
fire to buses and throw eggs at police stations and
Well, so it reminds me of when was it Burnley who destroyed their own town after they lost that football match?
I don't remember.
I can't remember who you played against. I'll try and find it for you. But I remember because we were staying with Dad, who obviously lived in Burnley, and smashed up the town because he lost a cup game or something like that. I'll find it. But yeah, that Julian Alfred who won the 100 meter, I saw an article this morning. So she competed in the 200 meters as well, as they generally do. If you're fast, you're fast. You're probably going to run the 100 and the 200.
Yeah.
Allegedly winning her heat the following morning for the 200 after 2 hours of sleep, after fulfilling media obligations and having a little bit of party. So that's the real deal, that isn't it?
I think the party probably consumed most of her time there, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
That's it though as well, isn't it? Like if you've got it in the tank, if you really are that good, you should be able to do it off zero sleep after having a good smash up. Like, do you remember when Paddy O'Keefe used to talk about being able to deliver pro fit education after you've had an absolute skinful and you're feeling hungover the night before because you just know it that well and you know the format, you know the rhythm to it. Like, do you remember anything like that?
I don't remember him saying that, but
He talked about it, but he never did it.
certainly-
But he talked about it. It was like that's how well you should know your job, kind of thing. Like you should be able to do it in any state, whatever state you're in,
I
because it's
like that.
just
I like that.
habitual. Um, what did you make of the 100 meters?
The women's,
No, the men's were just on the women's.
the men's. I'm going to be honest, it's probably the first time that I've ever, okay, apart from maybe when I was 4 and when I was 8 or whatever age I was, it will have been those ages. I don't remember a time where I didn't have a clue who was competing in them. I was aware of the names just from articles and stuff, but no idea who any of them were, which is terrible, really. I'm sure they don't know who I am either. But yeah, I thought it was exciting because obviously it was so close. Sorry if anyone's not watched it. Are we doing spoilers there just in case anyone? I
Oh
assume
no!
most people.
If you haven't seen it by now, you don't deserve to see it. You deserve a spoiler.
Right, okay. Yeah. So I was aware of some of the names in it. And you know what? It was funny. Someone was talking to me about it the morning after, and one of my clients, she goes, yeah, I didn't really know any of them either. I know they were all black. There were some from the United States. There's a couple of Jamaicans in there. And then I think she might have said St. Lucian or something like that. And I goes, yeah, that figures. That makes a lot of sense. I could have told you it would have been like that. Yeah, it was very, very exciting to finish that way. Very, very close. And it also goes to show, I think I sent you something on Instagram, the difference between first place and no one knowing your name.
Yeah,
Like I think it was a comedian actually who was doing that chin forward
yeah,
and
yeah,
chin back. I think they actually go off the chest, but yeah, that's the difference between first and
yeah.
being a Olympic gold
That-
medalist and then not being anything or anyone, no one knowing you.
I also think like that race was a little bit crazy because let me pull it up here. Like the actual times for it was. I think it probably goes down as the fastest race in history from the viewpoint of like everybody was in that like elite level window, which was like Noah Lyles, who won it 9.79, the Jamaican Thompson, who came second, 9.79. So he's literally lost out by thousandths of a second, which is unbelievably quick. Then seventh place, Bednarek, was at 9.88. So you've got 0.09 seconds separating everybody. 0.09, less than a tenth of a second separating the entire field in that situation. Sorry, no, got that quite a little bit wrong. There was a Seville, but he kind of pulled up a little bit. So, no, he didn't. He was 9.91. So, yeah, between the top seven, less than a tenth of a second.
Yeah. So,
Less than a tenth.
I mean, it's outrageous, isn't it? When we say about people running under 10 seconds, you don't even see that throughout the season. You'll see the occasional someone dipping under, obviously, the big names that are the Olympic finalists. You'll generally see them do a couple in the season under 10 seconds. And then obviously they are training specifically to peak at the Olympics. So that's where they'll run their fastest. So to see, 7 people running that time is outrageous. And it's interesting as well. I thought this after I watched it. because they're all going that fast, there's no real concept of like one being specifically faster than the other. Like we're so used to seeing Usain Bolt run it like half a second faster than everyone else that you see him like strides and strides in front, and therefore he looks even faster. With everyone being equally as fast there or thereabouts, it doesn't. They don't seem slow, obviously, but you can't understand. It's harder to comprehend just how fast they're actually going because they're
Yeah,
all so close to each other. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Enjoyable, exciting. And there was a lot of controversy about the Italian as well. You seen about how I can't remember if I saw this on the Netflix Sprint series that I've not actually watched, but I saw a preview of it, and it was some controversy surrounding that he'd won a gold medal and then not actually done any top races since then because of injuries, and other athletes were like, come on, like you've got to retain your throne, you've got to do another big race. And I think this is one of the first. So, or at least from the preview that I saw, which is very little information, I realize, but
And he also went and pulled up again, didn't he? Didn't he get injured?
is that what happened?
I think so. I think so.
There you go.
Whether it was in the final or something, I'm sure I saw him limping.
I'd be limping too if I was trying to convince people that I've got an injury and I'm worried
Oh
about.
no, he didn't. He didn't limp. He came fifth. He was all right. Yeah, fifth, 0.06 seconds behind everyone. Sorry, it was Jacobs, Italy. Yeah, that's the guy.
Which is crazy. Under 10 seconds is
He just had a very heavy strapping on his thigh. Um, so here's the question: do you reckon we can run it faster? Like, given that everybody is within that real like 9.8 sort of range. Number one, I also think like that just shows how freaky that 9.58 from Usain Bolt is as well, doesn't it? Do you
yeah,
think do you,
absolutely.
do you think it's possible to run it even quicker for humans generally?
I think there'll be some freaks out there that could probably run a 9.5, 9.4. I think over time, gradually, you'll see the speeds improve as we introduce new training methodologies and new drugs and uh, but I don't know. I don't know. I stand on the side of I heard you when we had a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago, you were saying about like the physiological limitations. I don't know if we are able to surpass them yet. We would have to evolve further, I think, in order to get significantly faster. Because the thing is, as well, Usain Bolt was an anomaly, first of all, in the fact that obviously, like we were talking about before we came in air, he allegedly was one of the only sprinters, if I think he was the only sprinter up until a couple of days ago who'd run 100 meters under 10 seconds and hadn't been caught doping. And second of all, he wasn't at all built like all your stereotypical sprinters who are generally shorter and not always, but more muscle mass, a little bit stockier. He is longer limbed, taller, slow. Well, he wasn't slow to start, was he? But generally slower start than the shorter guys. But because of his leg, his leg limb. What am I trying to say? His limb length.
Limb length, yes.
Thank you. Wow, that was. I apologize, everyone. That must have been difficult. His top speed was just ridiculous. But I don't know because he was an anomaly. Will we find another anomaly? It doesn't seem to appear that way, not in the next 5 years anyway.
Well, I think here, if we're looking at the top, so like the top times, this list that we're talking about, uh, I don't know how many times you're on it. There might be 20, maybe more, maybe 25. Obviously, for the benefit of everyone watching on YouTube, there you can see the red lines through are all the deleted times from athletes who have tested positive for doping. The only athlete on this entire page who has not been crossed out is the almighty Usain Bolt. And his times range from 9.58, 963, 969, 972, 976, 976, 976, 977, 977. The fastest time, sorry, the bottom of that list, I think, is a 978 by Tyson Gay. There's also times been deleted by Tyson Gay, Asaf Pal, Justin Gatlin, Johan Blake. Again, Justin Gatlin a couple of times, Tyson Gay a couple of times, Johan Blake a couple of times. So there are very, very few people that have pushed beyond that ceiling of that 9.79 kind of range. And I think when you take Usain Bolt's 9.58 and you take away his reaction time to the start gun, I think it's something like 9.27. So from the point that he decides he's going to start covering that distance, I think he actually does it in 9.27 seconds. So do you think it's possible to run it sub 9 seconds? If you remove the starting pistol and any sort of reaction time, is it physically possible?
No,
Not yet, anyway.
not with where we're at currently. Because I do know as well, there's been times where I'm certain it was Tyson Gay that I saw a 9.59 once, but because of the wind, at certain times don't stand to count as records, etc. You'll see people run fast times, but they might have like I can't remember what the regulations are and how much wind you can have, but if it's blowing you in the right direction, it certainly does help. Maybe that's where we start. We start with a bit of potentiation. We get a nice like gust of wind that's helped blowing us forward. But you just get so many injuries, wouldn't you, if you're not actually at that capacity? And this is where one of the problem arises. Obviously, you've got how fast can our fibers and muscles lengthen and shorten? How fast can we contract? How fast can we turn our legs over for the stride length? Like there's so much stuff. And then will our joints, will our tendons, will our ligaments be able to withstand it? And then if you are running that fast, there's going to be a wear and tear effect of that. So will you, if you do it once, like, is that it? Would you be able to keep training that way, or would you destroy your hip musculature? There's a lot more to it than then there's motor unit recruitment. There's can you send the cellular signals? Can you yeah. I don't know, you might need some rocket shoes.
Well, I've got some math here for you. So as an example, for a human to run 100 meters in under 9 seconds, it would require the maximum velocity to reach about 13.2 meters per second, which is very quick. That would require a stride length to be about like just as a rough guide, like there'd be different ranges for this, but it would require an example stride length of about 2.85 meters and a step frequency of 4.63 hertz, which is 4.63 cycles per second. And if we put that into perspective, Usain Bolt set the world record for the 100 meters, his average stride length and step frequency. So bear in mind, to cover it in 9 seconds needs to be 2.85. Usain Bolt was at 2.44 meters per stride, and his cycles per second, his hertz, were at 4.27, and it would need to be at 4.63.
Right.
And also, then you've got the problem of when you actually increase your stride length through your max velocity cycling phase, because you're striding further, your frequency has to drop because you're going further and you can't get back as quick because it's got further to come back. So your cycle slows down. That's where shorter, faster, choppier steps look really quick, but you're not going anywhere. So it's finding that sweet spot between the two. So that's not necessarily an easy thing. I was thinking, right, I had this conversation yesterday. What would it take for an athlete to be able to run it sub 9 seconds? I feel
So
like we need a bit of a Fosbury flop type moment. My idea here, right? My idea,
I'm listening.
run it on all fours like a dog. Get really, really good at it. That's why dogs are so quick. They got four legs. They got, I mean, yeah, they got backwards knees. Let's also like remember they are a dog. But if you were to so like you think like so my dog, my Doberman, runs about 35 miles an hour. Could probably hit that. Maybe yeah, that'd be a reasonable top speed for him. He's not quite as big as I am. So if I got down on all fours, if I had backwards knees and like longer Achilles tendons and then the coordination and the ability to maintain that, I'd be hitting a much bigger stride length. And then it's just a case of can I get my turnover right? If I could do that like a cheetah or a leopard, I'm away. I just
There
thought,
you go. There you go.
um,
I have thought about that before. There are people, usually in the United States, that run around on four limbs and stuff like that. And you'd be surprised at how often people ask me about maneuvering across all four limbs. And whilst I think it's really, really good for you, there's a reason that your legs are significantly bigger and stronger than your arms. And actually, you can definitely make your arms a lot stronger and more muscular if you were running around on them. But I think it would be quite painful to start with as you're making some adaptations.
it would
But
require, I think, a few generations of inbreeding. I think that's pretty much the way to go. It's got to be
I
inbreeding.
actually Googled, I didn't Google, sorry, excuse me. I asked ChatGPT just now, what would it take for a human to run 100 meters in 8 seconds? Because what 9 seconds? I want to see it done in 8 seconds. Anyway, it basically came to say that you would need some kind of genetic engineering. They reckon, according to ChatGPT, so wherever this information's come from, biomechanical and physiological models suggest that the theoretical lower limit for the 100-meter sprint is around 9.3 to 9.4 seconds. So breaking the 9 second barrier, let alone achieving it in 8 seconds, would require surpassing theoretical limits. And you need most likely some kind of aid to help you get there. A Fosbury flop moment, maybe you need to run it on your arms and legs. Who knows?
Could be, could be. We'll leave you with that one today, anyway, ladies and
Can
gents.
I
So,
just pose a hypothetical scenario that might get us in trouble?
go on.
So, what if through the process of changing from male to female or female to male, we have kind of like, when you hear about these superhero origin stories, uh, a cascade of a cocktail of hormones potentially, or a cascade of interesting events occur, and thus we end up with like super powered hybrid trannies that are stronger, faster.
What the hell are you talking
So
about?
I realized what happened there was the idea came in my head. I realized it was really stupid. And I thought, I heard Jordan Peterson say last week, if there's something that could be said and you don't say it, you've just lied. So I thought I'd let you all know where my head went. And I guarantee I won't be the only person that's thought about this.
I do think like for it to push through to the next level and for it to really kind of make another jump, you would have to you would have to do some sort of. You okay there? You struggling?
I just want to apologize to everyone.
It's all right. It's forgiven. You can like it's freedom of speech. You can say what you need to say. We'll leave it up to the tyrants that run the social media corporations to silence us and put us down. Um, I think it would have to take some sort of controlled breeding. Like you'd have to go right. You're a sprinter. You're really fast. You two get together, make a kid. Right, that kid and that kid, they're the two quickest. Go, bang. And I don't know. Beyond that, I think, yeah, you kind of just relying on happy accident of human nature and evolution. Go on, you've got your hand in the air. Do you need the toilet or have you got a question?
I would like to ask a question, please. Did you see the lady that won the 200 meters sprint for the women's?
No, was that finished? I didn't realize that I'd finished.
Oh, yeah. Don't want to ruin it for you. I'll
Oh,
let you
okay. No, I didn't. I didn't see. No.
finish. Unlike what we generally see in the 100 meters, apart from this time in the men's, she finished a good 2, 3 stride lengths ahead of everyone else.
All right.
Yeah, man. It's just, I think they should create an event that's somewhere between the two distances. I always enjoyed the 40 and the 60 meters as well, by the way. Unreal, unreal. And I liked so for ladies and gentlemen, if you've not seen it before, at the indoor world championships, they often have a 40-meter sprint for ladies and 60-meter for guys. And they'll do it because it's indoor.
No, it's
Uh,
still 60 for women, isn't it?
oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sure
because
they run the same distance.
they'll do indoor and there'll be like a shorter track around the outside of the straight. And people generally they finish, and obviously at the speed that they're running at, they go up the incline of the track and straight into a mat in the corner at the end, which is brilliant. And I also think they could do some kind of velocity test at the end of that. That would be useful information.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many G forces or how much like actual impact they're putting into that mat when they slam into it. Because
Do you think?
I know it feels, you know, when you get hit by someone at full tilt, it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
knocks the
lie.
wind out of me.
Yeah, certainly
Yeah.
does. Anyway, we will finish there for today. We'll conclude it at that. So have a little think, guys, about how we can actually run faster as people, as a human race. Like, how do we stretch beyond our limits to the realms of what is currently impossible? I'm actually reading a good book at the minute, which I've just started. I've just finished my other one. I'll tell you the title in a second. It's The Art of Impossible. Um, and it's a peak performance primer by Stephen Kotler. So I'm getting stuck into that at the minute.
Very nice. Very nice. What's it taught you so far?
Um, Basically, impossible is all the stuff that's never been done before, and most people believe will never be done. So we have to kind of imagine and visualize feats that exceed both our capabilities and our imagination. So if you think you want to achieve the impossible, you have to think about what you might not have even thought about and what nobody else might have even thought about previously. Which
Have you ever
sounds
read
easy.
Rich Dad Poor Dad?
By Kiyosaki.
Yeah. So the reason that I asked that is because he poses a really interesting I don't think it's the first thing he says, but it's one of the first things that he talks about where poor dad would say you can't afford that. AKA my translation here would be that's impossible. You can't do that. Rich dad, however, would say, okay, what would you have to do to be able to afford that? Very similar to what you were saying about the 100 meters. How would we be able to make it so? And it suddenly opens the gateway from something being impossible to, all right, how would this work if we could make this work?
Yeah. I think it's like Elon Musk also does this as well, where he talks about, sorry for any, far left liberals that hate him. But I think he's a really good example of someone that knows his shit and knows what he's doing and actually has had a wholly positive impact on planet Earth. But feel free to disagree. He talks about, like, if you got a 10-year goal, think about what would you have to do to get it done within 6 months. And I know he's not the only person with that same kind of principle and operating system. Like, there's a lot of other high performers who do it the same way, but you just think if it's possible for you over 10 years, what would you have to do for it to be possible within 6 months? And really shrink that time scale down, really start operating and clicking and working at a real rate of knots.
Yeah, and I
I
think
think that's
that
a really good way to approach anything.
I agree. And not only, I think a lot of people will naturally sit there and they'll listen to that and they'll go, well, just do the 10-year work in a 6 month period. Well, actually, if you looked at that, that would be impossible and you wouldn't be able to sleep, etc. So it's finding a way to be able to balance everything that you're doing while still being able to do all that work. And that work, therefore, has to become more effective. So you're putting in a fucking solid foundational plan to get it done. People have to look more intricately and stuff like that. Always the same with goal setting. If you spend 30 seconds setting your goals, you can have a 30-second plan. If you spend a long time sitting down with it and going through it, it's going to be far more intricate. If you're more meticulous about it, you're doing more meticulous about the process, and therefore it's going to pay you back in dividends,
Mhm.
as opposed to the person that put 30 seconds into it. But
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a good note for us to finish on for today. So that concludes us for episode 112 of the Lenko Show. place where we talk about all things health and performance and
Fans.
rants. If you've got any questions or you need us for anything, you know where to find us. Check us out on Instagram, or you can message the show directly. Please feel free to leave a review if you enjoy it, and share it beyond far and wide so that other people can hear and find out about the Twisted Fruit Zero Sugar Lidl slash Aldi knockoff Fanta Fruit Twist drink, because Chris is absolutely loving it. So we will speak to you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of the Olympic Games. That is it from me, Chris,
That is it from me, folks.
and we will see you again soon, guys. Take care.